Okay, hello everybody and welcome. I'm Iveri, Kekenadzé, the head of international office at Conservatory, and in collaboration with Malmö Academy of Music, I'd like to open the fifth session of the international panel discussion series, Freedom in Music Education. It's of course such a privilege to be able to be here and peacefully talk about music and the freedom in music education, considering the terrible situation and war in Ukraine. I'd like to remind you that 6 sessions are being held within the project, and the current challenges of high music education are discussed. International experts, professional musicians, and representatives of higher educational institutions are the speakers of our events from more than 10 countries of the world. Discussions are held on the Conservatory's Facebook page every Monday at 4 p.m. CT from February 28th to April 4th. And I just want to do the disclaimer here that all the opinions that might be discussed and stated here and the personal opinions that might not be presenting the official position of the Tbilisi State Conservatory nor the Malmö Academy of Music. For today's session, the main topic of the fifth meeting is freedom of expression, the taste and the marketing appetite. And our speakers are Christian Jelichich, a pianist from Austria, based in Switzerland. Keld Hosbondy, who's the vice principal at the Royal Academy of Music in Orhus, Denmark, and Kimbal Gallagher, he's the concert pianist, entrepreneur from US. I'm very happy and proud to have you all here. And for our fifth session, we asked our participants to discuss following issues. How do students use technology to promote themselves? What are the challenges to the new normal in the era of digitalization? The line between being a musician, a self-manager, entrepreneur, and what is the leveling up in music? For our first speaker, I'd like to present Christian Jelichich, who is a Viennese Croatian pianist and who graduated from the University of Music and Performing Arts, Vienna, and the Zurich University of Arts, where he subsequently taught improvisation and piano skills. Besides focusing on classical music performance, he has engaged in a variety of art styles ranging from flamenco and Eastern music to contemporary crossover projects. Featuring dancers and actors, he is also regularly commissioned to arrange and compose for various performance projects and record labels. Christian is based in Zurich, as I said, and continues to perform in ensembles across Europe. So thank you, Christian, for being with us, and we're listening to you.
Thank you, Iveri, very much for inviting me, and I'm glad to talk today. I decided to focus on the topic of digitalization, especially to show the changes we have through digitalization in the music industry. And I did some research on Spotify and talked to a lot of colleagues in the music industry to get a deeper understanding, and simply wanted maybe to show a little bit some facts about how Spotify has developed until now and how it's maybe gonna develop in the future. I used to have a more skeptical stance towards social media because I used to think that you have to have very, very big quantities of streams and followers to really be able to have some profit out of these new tools. But my research actually made me change my opinion a little bit. Especially now in this really turbulent times, we see how strong the impact of social media actually is. And yes, Spotify is probably the most known actor of change in the music industry of the last decade. Spotify has now more than 6,000 workers and employees, and was founded in Sweden, Stockholm, by Daniel Ek and Martin Lorentzon, who founded the company in 2006 and kicked off in 2008. The idea of Spotify was in the beginning to offer a legal alternative to piracy. With this idea, Daniel Ek managed to convince the major labels to support him actually in building this company. And as we will find out, he was successful until now. Today, Spotify has more than 406 million active users worldwide, from which 180 million users are paying premium members. That means that they don't have any advertisements and they don't have any limitations in the usage of Spotify, of the tool. Its main user base is in Europe, which makes a third of their worldwide users, but it has expanded already into 182 countries all over the world, excluding China and South Korea. As it's dominant in the West, for example, you see it in Germany that Spotify has 68% market share within the streaming service market, followed by Apple Music and Amazon Music. And the music that's being listened to most are, of course, pop music and charts, followed by hip hop and rock and sort of. Now, to the payment structure of Spotify, Spotify claims since its beginning that 70% of their sales volume actually go to the music industry pool. That means copywriters, owners, labels, copyright owners, labels, etc., which then further pay out money to artists or creators, as they're called in the digital space. A stream counts as being played as soon as it was played for at least 30 seconds. It's maybe important to know if we're going to engage with these tools. Different streaming services like Apple Music, Amazon Music, they use different calculation models. In the case of Spotify, there is no fixed royalty distribution standard. There are various factors that influence the pricing, and the two most important factors are the country where the track is being listened to, and of course, if the listener is a premium or a free user. That way, in 2020, 180,000 creators generated only $1,000 annually, and compared to 870 creators who created more than $1 million annually on average. So you have a typical case of the parity distribution, like you have it often in big markets, and Spotify is no exception here. Last year, Spotify had annual sales as high as $9.67 billion, so almost $10 billion. And it's growing each year by 16%, and it doesn't seem to be to stop. But despite this immensely growing sales, the streaming giant isn't still profitable yet. The losses in 2020 were still as high as $580 million, though last year they managed to reduce it significantly. But the future would show where Spotify is heading to. There's a lot of hearsay about Spotify, about their payment structure, about not being profitable, but it's a very complex topic. And if you look at the investments that Spotify is taking for years now, buying other companies or investing a lot into research and new technologies, then these investments are far beyond the losses they make annually. But we will come back to this. as soon as Spotify got more noticeable attention on a global scale, critics from all corners of the music industry were raising their voices against the company, as we all probably know. A research funded by German broadcasts in 2013 revealed that a musician was able to earn up to 0.16 cent per stream in the best case, though a single received stream from a radio station, for example, would have paid even less. But the reach and distribution of these two different medias are not so easy comparable in such a narrow calculus. Other statistics differ in their number. One from the same time period speaks of 1.3, so more than double as much money. But it's still far from 1.8 cents per stream that Spotify back then claimed to be paying to the artist per stream. How much the industry pool in each country is keeping for itself varies a lot, as well as the contracts that labels and distributors have made with each artist individually, as it was in the past when the music industry was leaning more towards mechanical media too. Starting in 2013 until 15, complaints about the intransparent or even unfair royalty payouts made several famous artists like Tom York or Taylor Swift, among others, to withdraw their music from Spotify and speak up for Spotify's rival Apple Music. Spotify reacted to the criticism of the website loud and clear, where they have explanatory videos and data to illustrate their calculation models. According to their own numbers, Spotify is, as I said, paying 0.6 to 0.8 cents per stream. And since 2018, most of these withdrawn albums are actually back on Spotify again. The key issue is royalty payments. Spotify says that around 70% of its income subscriptions is paid into the industry pool, from where individual copyright holders pay their artists, and artist income will only grow as the user base expands. Mark Williamson, the director of the artist service of Spotify, says that payments are not calculated on a per stream basis, but insists that rates are equitable across labels. So working back from their royalty statements, several artists have calculated the rates around 0.4 per stream. So you need over 200 plays to match the 99, like about $1 that's paid for, that used to be paid for one iTunes download. Whether or not that is fair depends on how you're comparing it. If you count every stream as a lost sale, then it's disastrous, obviously. If, however, you compare it to YouTube, which rates are secret but reportedly lower, or if you compare it to piracy, then it's not so bad, actually. Traditionally, the average album earned most of its revenue within a couple of months and then dipped as interest went and retail shelf space was ceded. On Spotify, theoretically, a song could never stop earning money. So basically, Spotify pays artists royalties based on their market share. The number of streams for their songs as a proportion of total songs streamed on the service. I have a little graphic I would like to share. I made a screenshot of it. Wait, here it is. Can you see it? Yes. So if we compare 18 of the world's 20 most important music markets, China and South Korea, of course, not included, we see that the values vary enormously. The payout for 1 million streams ranges from $850 in Argentina to almost $5,500 in Norway. On average, you get $3,200 for 1 million streams. in the 18 most important music markets. This means that it doesn't only depend on the changes in your personal streaming numbers, but also how the market changes in general. If the number of your streams decrease, but also the number of your streams, all your streams drops equally, you still earn the same amount, and vice versa, obviously. This means that it doesn't only depend on the changes in your personal streaming numbers, but also how the market changes in general. If the numbers of your streams decreases, but also the total number of all streams drops equally, you still earn the same amount. The most important factors that influence how much you get per stream is the subscription price, as mentioned. This is the subscription type, if it's free or paid. The origin of the stream, from which country it comes from, advertising revenue generated in the respective markets, number of subscriptions, and the number of streams generated per month. And here I come to my last point. Spotify is not only interested in streaming services, but is more and more providing tools for music distribution, production, and even licensing. They tried to launch their own music distribution, but stopped it soon after. Probably, that's just a guess, due to disagreements with major labels that were still holding back then big chunks of Spotify shares. But since a couple of years, they are acquiring potential companies who carry on into other parts of the music industry. For example, that way Spotify tried to acquire SoundCloud in 2019, but then stepped away from the project. The acquisition of soundbetter.com was therefore much more successful. SoundBetter offers the most comprehensive, I'm quoting here the head of SoundBetter. SoundBetter offers the most comprehensive global marketplace for music and audio production professionals for hire in the world, along with a member community spanning 176 countries and 14,000 cities worldwide, said SoundBetter co-founder and CEO Shahar Gilad. We are all excited to benefit from Spotify's global scale resources and vision to expand our network and drive more economic opportunities for artists of all. Spotify has over the years amassed a growing list of assets that take the platform beyond basic music streaming assets, with a lot of attention of late focused on spoken word content like podcasts, and providing cloud-based studio services by way of Soundtrap that they acquired in 2017, and podcast platforms like Anchor. But music still continues to be the beating drum of the platform, with paid streaming continuing to grow at the expense of the physical music business. So Spotify will continue to build up that area of its business too, not least also because competitors like Apple are continuing to build up its own services for artists that bypass traditional labels. This move signals Spotify's intention to not just be a distributor of streaming music and other audio, but also to help facilitate its creation. Indeed, for Spotify, the deal is a signal that the company is going to continue investing in more behind-the-scenes services for artists and others in the music ecosystem. There are a few reasons why this needs to happen. First and foremost, there is the financial predicament of musicians themselves, since they have long lamented about how little they earn from Spotify. So having additional services available to them, either to make money or to at least operate more efficiently in their craft, can only be a boost to that relationship. To stay in time, I will jump maybe really to the last topic. These tools for artists and creators are summed up in the toolbox called Spotify for Artists. It is the toolbox that creators can use to upload their music, track their statistics, and custom their artistic profile. From there on, you can use Spotify canvases, for example, Spotify Canvas to create short clips for Instagram and TikTok, which you can directly connect to your social media account to ease up the output process. Spotify itself describes Spotify for artists as a one-stop shop that should guide you through the whole self-management process in the digital world. It allows you to see who listens to your music and where. According to this information, the creator can adjust his promotion moves, plan tours or events at areas that play his music, and use the numbers kind of like as a proof of success. Further, these numbers can be important too, for example, release strategies whatsoever. 68% of Spotify users, like listeners, discover new music via Spotify playlists. So getting your music distributed across playlists as much as possible is the key. There are several alternative distributors with individual business model that mostly offer the possibility to easily operate through the whole social media and licensing processes. Those are websites like like iMusician, for example, is quite famous. Or in Germany, you have regional providers like Music Hub, who are co-founded by the German collecting society GEMA to ease up the copyright rights process and things like this. Yes. So basically, it's a lot about promotion and being able to have an energy projection on as many different medias as possible to accumulate as much clicks as possible that are hopefully as self-sustaining as possible in the end. Yes, I think that's good.
Thank you, Christian. For the very comprehensive presentation of Spotify, I guess, and also some kind of guidelines for the musicians. And actually, like Spotify just opened in Georgia, and it wasn't possible before. And I think it was the last year when it first was possible. So you were right about the expansion of it. And not far from the, thank you again, and not far from the Swedish startup, we go to neighboring Denmark, and we have the Keld, next speaker. And I will not give the large text as I usually give as an introduction, because you were here for the previous sessions. He's vice principal, the head of international relations at the Royal Academy of Music in Aarhus, Denmark, a long-time partner institution of the Conservatory, and I'm very happy to have you here, and let's listen from you.
Thank you very much. Yes, I wish we had invented Spotify in Denmark, but unfortunately it wasn't Sweden. Well, thank you for inviting me. I have to say what I'm not, because I'm definitely not a digital expert, and I was very happy to learn about the Spotify bits and pieces. And but what I do know a little bit about is how to work with entrepreneurship inside artistic educations. And I think that's what I will tell you a little bit about and show you a web resource that could maybe be a benefit for some of you. So I'll tell you a little bit about first how we work with artistic entrepreneurship, as we call it in Denmark. And then I'll show you a web page from a national center of competence that we have in Denmark. We have been working with entrepreneurship for quite many years now in Denmark, and by now at the Royal Academy of Music in Aarhus, Aalborg, it's a mandatory element that you have to take throughout your studies, both bachelor and master studies. It's sort of a growing field. We are all the time trying to become better at how to integrate it in the regular studies, because in the beginning it was kind of a foreign element that the students didn't really like, because they wanted to focus on their skills on playing and composing and so on. But over the years, I think we have succeeded partly in integrating this mindset in a way that entrepreneurship and the way of thinking about commercial stuff and how to sell your abilities in a way can be an integrated part of your artistic process. So the way I see entrepreneurship is more like a mindset that you use in your daily studies and your professional life afterwards. And I'll get to the digital part of it, but for me, digitalization is just it's a tool. It's a very important tool, but it has to come from a mindset that starts somewhere. And I think this is what we can work with in artistic education. We can try to implement an artistic mindset that encompasses entrepreneurship as well. In a very broad term, you could say that entrepreneurship in an artistic environment consists of some hard skills and some soft skills. When you talk about the hard skills, it's like you have to know about tech systems. You have to know about making a business plan. You have to know about how to make your CV, how to make a way of communicating your business if you have a business. It can be to set up your own startup company. All that sort of hard skills you really need to become a successful musician. And this goes across all genres, I think. It doesn't matter if you play jazz or classical or electronic composition or whatever. It's sort of the same thing you have to learn. Of course, there can be variations. And that's also how we started our program like 10, 12 years ago, focusing on these hard skills. But we realized over the years that that's definitely not enough. We have to work on the other end of the continuum, and that's the soft skills. Working with the concept of proactivity, concepts like self-management. How do you work with yourself as an artist in talking about idea generation? How to maintain yourself? How to work with sustainability in your artistic production? And in that sense, you also get closer to some of the communication parts, which I would put somewhere in the middle between the soft and hard skills. And now we're getting closer to the digital presence, because I think if you think about your digital presence, you have to be aware what kind of artist you are, what kind of composer, what kind of performing artist, what kind of pedagogical artist do you want to be, and that will be the basis on which you sort of model your presence online as well. Without doing these basic reflections, it will be hard to find out exactly what kind of digital presence you want to look for. So things like money and Spotify is like Christian was talking about, is really, really important. For me, it's over in the hard skills box. But to find out, okay, what kind of aesthetic profile do you want to have? How do you want to promote yourself as an artist? What kind of networks do you want to link up to? Which social media platforms do you want to use? All these questions, you have to solve them before you really enter into the hardcore part of it. A thing like an artist statement could be interesting in that connection. What is your ideology? What is your vision for being an artist? What kind of people do you want to work with? All these sorts of basic questions that you have to ask to yourself. And sometimes I hear the term DIY, do it yourself, is very popular among the entrepreneurship environment. But I like a variation of that. That is DIT, do it together. What kind of environment do you want to be in? What do you want to do your stuff alone, or do you want to do it together with other people? Very often it's much easier if you are working together with people. That sort of also reflects in the way we structure our entrepreneurship courses. We always encourage the students to work in groups and to do stuff together with others. Okay, it takes me to this web page I want to show you. If I manage to find it. Do you see this? This is it's a shared platform between all the Danish art schools. It's called Kaki, CAKI.dk. You can check it out afterwards if you want to. I just want to give you a few glimpses. There's a lot of information, and it's both in Danish and English. But talking about entrepreneurship, I think this might be the most relevant. This page about we call it Entre Wiki. There's a lot of stuff here that you can go in and check out. How to make some of the hardcore stuff I told you about, agreements, business plans, and so on. You see a lot of business model. If you want to do a business model canvas, you go in here and check what is this about, and you find links and so on. If you want to start up a business, you find some tips and tricks. If you want to talk about media and communication, here's some stuff you can go in and check out. And I want to scroll down to a marketing plan. For instance, if you want to do a marketing plan, and I think this is what you need to do before you enter into the digital presence as well, you have to find out who do you want to reach, what is the goal of your marketing, what budget do you have, what media do you want to use, what message do you want in your marketing. For instance, if you go into Instagram, which is very popular at the moment, I think you have to be really, really precise in your way of communicating. You have to be quite strict on the aesthetics and how you promote yourself and your music and art. Yes. Here you also find a media plan. What kind of stuff do you want to advertise? What platforms? Is it video? Is it do you want to make a blog on your web page? Do you want to use newsletters? What kind of events do you want to market, and so on and so on. A lot of stuff to dig into. You can also, this is alphabetically ordered, so you can just scroll down. And I want to show you social media strategy as well. Yeah, style and tone. Find the style and tone your business wants to communicate on SoMe. This is really crucial if you want to be successful on the SoMe. Because it's so competitive and you really need to be extremely precise. And you need to set goals for what you want to obtain with your presence on the different platforms. You need to plan, you need to follow up, be quite strict about this. And I know this can be quite foreign to a musician or to an artist, but so sometimes, again, do it together. You might want to team up with somebody who is really an expert in this field and make teams. So a musician and artist should not be alone. If you don't have the skills yourself and you don't want to spend your time on getting these skills, you have to team up with other people. Yes, but I can recommend this wiki for digging down into all these topics. Yeah, there's also some recommendations about crowdfunding, which is another variation of using the media to do fundraising, which can be crucial in having success as an artist. I think it's an overlooked phenomenon among artists, but it's actually possible to fundraise quite a bit if you dig into these different possibilities. I think that's maybe what I want to say at this point. So we can.
Thank you very much. I think it's a very important skills that is needed in today's age, especially. And like I think what Christian was talking about, Spotify is the small part of it, like one of the tools that might be used for the artists to see themselves and stage themselves where they see themselves. Yeah, I think that our students will be discovering these websites, and you will, if you see the location, there'll be a lot of Georgians probably visiting it. So thank you very much for sharing. Yeah, this was the good continuation, and yeah, we will have the link, and we can write down in the comment section that link as well if somebody wants to go on. And today's final speaker is for us Kimbal, who is a pianist and entrepreneur from US. I'm sorry for your last name, very bad pronunciation for it, but I can present you that you are an accomplished pianist who had a sold out 2008 debut at Carnegie Hall, and Kimbal launched his international the 88 concert tour after reviving the salon culture through a series of 300+ performances in the variety of non-traditional venues. Gallagher has blazed a trail across the 7 continents, appearing in 30 countries, and has performed in distinguished venues and intimate gatherings all over the world. From the Kennedy Center to Kabul, Bombay to Boulder, Chicago to Shanghai, and Tuscany to Tunisia. The 88 concert tour concluded with the culmination recital by Gallagher at Carnegie Hall in 2015, New York City, leading the initiation of 88 international organization, initiating and executing projects across the globe. And today you're here from Senegal, and we're listening to you thoroughly.
Thank you so much. It's really great to be here, and I very much appreciated the presentation on Spotify from Christian, and also Keld, you used the word mindset several times, which I was happy because I'm really going to talk mainly about 3 different mindsets related to entrepreneurship and also therefore freedom. I know that one of the themes of today is freedom in music education, and I'd like to talk about the idea of freedom by cultivating a skill of creating your own opportunities as an artist. And so I'd like to take 3 different perspectives, 3 different mindsets. The first I like to call the artist mindset. The second is the audience mindset. And the third I like to call the society mindset. These are just labels that I've put on these things for convenience. They're not meant to be limiting in any way. So for the artist mindset, it has certain characteristics. It's really focused on oneself as an artist. Questions like, what are my own needs? Keld mentioned the do it together. I like to talk about having a personal board of directors. So if you're an artist, you probably already have many people that you consult in your life for all different types of concerns. I mean, I'm a pianist, so I would have like my teacher might help me with my interpretation, or maybe there's certain teachers that are better for physical choreography at the keyboard, and then there are others who maybe are more imaginative, or maybe there's some that combine both. Maybe you have somebody you speak to about clothing choices in concerts. Perhaps even in different countries you might select different pieces of clothing, travel advice on where to perform, advice on contracts, legal considerations, digital considerations, and maybe you can have specialists in your life for all of these aspects. But I'd like to propose the idea that conversation is perhaps one of the most important entrepreneurial tools. And I'd like to share a short story coming from my own experience as an artist. When I graduated from university at the age of 22 or 3, I did not have a piano. And so that was my conversation that I was having with people. I just graduated. I don't have a piano. What do you think I can do? And I had brought this up in conversations, casual conversations, almost daily with many of the people I knew. And I had a mentor at the time who said, you know what, why don't you divide the cost of this piano by 88, because there are 88 keys on the piano, and you could ask for donations key by key, so people could buy a key of your new piano. And I kind of thought, oh, that could be interesting. So I kind of added that to my conversation. So when people said, hey, what are you up to? I said, oh, I'm trying to buy a piano. I just graduated. I don't have any funds, but I have this idea. I'm going to divide the cost by 88 and ask for donations on a key-by-key basis. And then somebody said, well, which piano do you want to buy? And I was like, oh, I'm not sure. It's like, oh, well, you really need to talk to this man named Michael Harrison, who works at a specific piano store named Faust Harrison Pianos. This is all in 2002 that this was occurring, 2002, 2003. And so I went, made an appointment with Michael Harrison. I had the same conversation with him. And he then gave me an idea. He said, why don't you have a concert at the store? You can so-called sell the keys of your piano at this concert. And we're going to make the first donation right now. In fact, you have to pay the normal rental fee to have the concert, but we're going to put the whole amount towards the piano itself. So basically, we'll reduce the cost of the piano if you buy it from us at this store. So I found that attractive, and he showed me to many different pianos, and I decided which piano I wanted to buy. I actually decided to buy an Estonia piano. They had just started to be imported to the US around that, a few years before that time. And I continued this conversation, collecting different ideas from so many different people. I met somebody else who I added to my team, my board of directors, a woman who was an expert in fundraising. She said, well, you need a pledge card. This is 20 years ago, and they use pledge cards all the time. These cards that have the different categories where if somebody would like to donate to your cause, or in my case, myself as an artist, this is part of the artist mindset, they could choose, oh, I'd like to buy 1 key. Well, maybe some people would like to buy 2 keys. So I had trill as the 2-key category. We had some other musical categories, the major third, the perfect fifth, the octave club. Then we had glissando club and crescendo club as these categories. This is sort of a typical way to organize the different possible amounts that you might need to receive as a donation. It also puts things into perspective for certain donors if they'd like to contribute. For example, I had some colleagues who were also students who did not have, hundreds or thousands of dollars to contribute, but they teamed up, and a group of about 10 or 12 of my friends combined to buy 1 key. So I had also this type of efforts. So I continued talking to people. I probably asked 300 or 400 people for advice over the course of a year leading up to this fundraising concert for my own piano that I had at this piano store. And I started to accumulate a little bit of confidence along the way because things seemed to be going pretty well. At first, I was really, really nervous to start asking people for money. And I thought I had all these typical kinds of problems that artists might have, especially at a young age. Why would anyone want to just give money, and all these kinds of questions. And so after this first concert at the Faust Harrison Piano Store, we were able to raise about half of the funds for this piano. And so my conversation then evolved a bit more. I just graduated, I don't have a piano yet, but I've actually raised half of the money towards a piano, and I'm dividing the keys by 88 so people can buy the piano on 88, they can buy the keys on the piano, excuse me. And so I continued having this conversation. I actually set up a second concert, in which we were able to raise the remaining funds. I got so into the habit of telling people that I was doing this that I had 2 donors buy 4 keys just within 10 minutes of meeting them after different concerts and events. So then after I was able to actually buy the piano, it didn't fit into my apartment. I had to move to a different apartment. And so it really kind of shifted my whole life. But the conversation then changed again. People started to ask. I was invited to different institutions to tell this story. I created a whole 1.5 hour workshop on fundraising for younger musicians to get them thinking about the different mindsets, specific mindset shifts that one might go through shifting from a student mentality to a professional mentality. So I'd like to just jump quickly now to the second mindset, what I call the audience mindset. So the audience mindset is what happens when, as an artist, you put the audience as one of the main focuses of your thoughts and your activities and your actions. And so, as Iveri mentioned, I had a concert tour of virtually the whole world, all 7 continents, including Antarctica and 30 countries. And many of the concerts were in conventional venues, but the majority were in private homes, schools, and other types of non-conventional venues. And this attitude is part of the audience mindset because it's about going to where the audience already is, instead of always trying to attract the audience to another venue. And so I was exploring the possibilities with what I called salon concerts. So having concerts in private homes, looking for ways to personalize and customize events for individual people who were perhaps the hosts of these concerts. Maybe they had preferred musical selections. If I was in a specific country, of course, I would always try to find music from that country in order to just reach out a little bit as a guest, as a foreigner. Also always seeking, if possible, collaborations with other artists. This is all sort of basic audience mindset stuff. I also developed the habit of taking the name of either the host or somebody in the concert, or somebody that was connected to the concert, or an occasion that was linked to the concert. Often the concerts were to celebrate anniversaries or birthdays or Independence Days, or depending on what the situation was. So I would take somebody's name and spell it out in musical notes, just like Bach did many hundreds of years ago, and many other composers as well. And by transposing somebody's name into musical notes, I could then create a melody using their name and create a composition that I would then dedicate and gift to the host as part of a way to connect to the audience. I think this is a very beautiful idea. It's also something that can be done as an improvisation, which is lovely to explore. It can be very serious. It can also be sort of like a party trick if that's part of your sort of arsenal as an artist, just to have somebody give their name during the concert, transpose it into musical notes, and then create an improvisation in the atmosphere or the character selected by the audience member. So these types of activities, this interactive activities with audience, can work extremely well in schools with students of all ages. And I'm going to use that as a pivot into my third mindset, which is what I call society, the society mindset. And here the characteristics really shift quite a bit. So instead of asking, what does the audience want, or how can I better attract their attention, or how can I better introduce the piece to them? So not only did we have, I'll just add, not only did we also have these activities that I mentioned about interaction, of course, speaking about the music, trying to find common points between the audience and the piece of music they're about to listen to. And I spent almost as long figuring out how to talk to an audience as I would actually preparing the performance itself, giving a lot of importance to what can I say to an audience? What can I show them about the music? What insights could I give them about the music in, say, the 2 or 3 minutes just before playing it that's really going to help them deepen their listening, become totally absorbed into what I'm doing? How can I sort of set them up for that experience? Obviously, the performance remains probably the most important thing. I'm not questioning that, but I do think that what you share with people right before they listen is really important, depending on who the audience is. So back to the society mindset. This is a different question fundamentally. These are asking questions as an entrepreneur, as an artist, and asking questions like, what could the role of music be in a given country or a neighborhood or a state? What role could music have that could address some of the critical concerns that are happening, or could solve even potentially some of the problems? So as a very quick case study, I'm going to take an example of a project that I founded and managed in Tunisia called Tunisia 88. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen real quick. I'm not going to use the slideshow mode because it usually crashes my computer. I'm just going to run through some images really quick. This is a map of the tour that I did. These are some images of different salon concerts from around the world: Afghanistan, Mysore, India, Shanghai, France, Turkey, Ankara, Turkey, Leipzig. This is a school I mentioned. We did a lot of things in schools from Taiwan. This is from concert right after with some penguins in Antarctica. And then I launched this nonprofit organization, which is called 88 International. And I'd like to share a little bit about this project called Tunisia 88. So in Tunisia, effectively, we're trying to address, let's say, extremism, youth unemployment, a lack of after-school activities. So these concerns or these narratives range from sort of geopolitical to purely educational, societal, and different concerns of that nature. So we were able to find that Tunisia actually wanted to reinstate after-school cultural clubs that they used to have, but that had since died. And so we created Tunisia 88 to revive after-school music clubs. But instead of putting in student-led music clubs, we wanted to try to autonomize the students, give them more responsibility, give them more independence. And so we asked the students to be in charge of their own club. We asked the students to write their own songs. We asked the students to create their own events, and we gave them trainings on how to do these mostly soft skills. So in the society mindset, one asks this type of question: what need can we meet? How can we, in this case of Tunisia, channel all of this dormant youth energy into something creative, something exciting, something productive? Which institutions are we going to partner with? This is now, instead of thinking, you know, which piece do I want to play tomorrow at the concert? As a pianist, I'm thinking, which institutions? Well, we need to talk to the Ministry of Education. They're the most important educational institution in the country. They control all the public schools, and we were looking to do public schools. We also work with a Tunisian NGO called Action et Développement Solidaire, Solidarity in Action and Development. We work with the European Investment Bank Institute, which is an institute. It's part of the Development Bank, which is the EIB, the largest development bank in the world. In fact, we also worked with different embassies, the German embassy, the US embassy, the Canadian embassy, many other European embassies, and various Tunisian sponsors to support this. Dozens of teachers, thousands of students. So when you look and see things on a societal level, there's also a chance for a different type of, shall we say, scaling up of the process. And I'll just run through a few images as well. We were able to put a music club into all 586 high schools in Tunisia. So each of these stars that you see on the map, this is a map of Tunisia. Tunisia is, of course, just across the Mediterranean Sea from Italy. And I'm aware that I'm just about out of time here. So we put these music clubs into all public high schools, which you see on this map. And these clubs are highly active. They create songs with musical messages and social messages that are very important. Some of the topics they choose have to do with the empowerment of women. Some of it has to do with the state of the country. They deal with extreme emotions. They choose a lot of challenging and difficult topics. And these are adolescents dealing with this. They compose in many different styles of music, traditional musics, you know, popular music that they're influenced by, traditional Tunisian music, of course, traditional Turkish music, some classical, European classical music, etc. We do not impose a certain genre of music. We actually let the students choose. So this could be a presentation all to itself. I just wanted to give you a glimpse, and I'll summarize a little bit. I'll just run through maybe a few of these photos. We have different statistics. These are what some of the club meetings look like in Tunisia, different activities we did with them. These are some of our team photos, different sites in Tunisia. We also have a choir program. We were able to work with orchestras. Some of the clubs actually performed their song with orchestra as part of this. So just to recap, 3 entrepreneurial mindsets: the artist mindset, the audience mindset, and the society mindset. And I just want to try to encourage you to think also, what kind of role do you want to play as an artist? Because I think there's so much impact to be made around the world. And I'll close with just one final thought. The president of my music school that I went to, the Juilliard School in New York, he wrote a book called The Artist as Citizen in 2003 or 2. And in this book, the thesis of the book is essentially that in the 20th century, artists could just be artists, and that's it. And there were other people to sort of take care of the rest, so to speak, the managers, the schooling, etc. But that in the 21st century, it's the artists that have to be the entrepreneurs, the artists have to be the advocates, and the artists have to be the educators. And the artists also have to be pretty much everything that those words imply, because basically, who else is really going to do all these things? So thank you very much. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. It's like the embodiment of the Keld's all advices that you have used it, and it was really interesting. And I guess some kind of inspiration for many of us. And also, it's like nowadays, it's like a lot of opportunities, a lot of new ways that people can do stuff, and it's also it's about being creative. It's sometimes not about innovation, that you discover something and invent the new wheel or bicycle, or how we say it. But it's about creativity, and it's about finding your own way of communication and then create creative stuff. So thank you for that. Thank you everyone for your presentations. I will give you like maybe 1 minute conclusion to wrap up, and then maybe you want to comment on each other's presentation, and we can start with Keld, and then with the Christian we can go, and you can finish Kimbo. Keld.
Well, first of all, Kimberl, thank you so much for a very inspiring presentation. I think it's very much to the point. And at the moment, we work a lot with artistic citizenship as a key strategical tool. So that's totally to the point of what you're talking about. Thank you.
Thank you. Christian, maybe you want to wrap up?
Yes, I was very pleased by Kimball's and Keld's presentation, especially mentioning this duality of soft skills and hard skills, and having this entrepreneur mindset or this three different entrepreneur mindsets. It really is an interesting way to think about it, and it's very important, and I'm happy to hear that universities are already trying to implement this mindset, like to support this kind of mindset in the university and in students, because of course hard skills are very important and artistic skills are important, but having a mindset to be able to show this art to the world, that's just as important. Yeah.
Thank you. Maybe you want something to add, Kimball?
Sure. I just wanted to add that, I've given this type of presentation, many, many times over the past 20 years. And I think sometimes, especially as I myself get farther in age from the university students, it's kind of like the deer in the headlights reaction, like, oh my God, like I don't have any of these skills. All I do is practice. Like, how am I possibly going to, absorb and learn all these things? And I think that another mindset that's really important is the so-called growth mindset. Before I did that process of the fundraising that I mentioned, I had truly no experience doing this. So I really did have to kind of work up the courage. Who am I going to ask about this? Who am I going to talk to? And I risk that I may have talked really fast or made it seem easy, but really with every single person, there's a lot of insecurities to sometimes work through. All these skills, all these soft skills and hard skills can be acquired, and they can be acquired, through talking to the people that are already around you. They can be acquired by, seeking out various resources, institutions. If you can play an instrument, if you're already going to a conservatory, somebody used to tell me, it's like, well, if you can learn to play, a Chopin sonata, I'm pretty sure you can learn how to do your taxes. You know what I mean? So that's just the final encouragement, I guess, is it's not that hard to absorb these things if you've already learned to play a musical instrument at a pretty high level.
Exactly. Thank you. And it's also like, I was just reading the Michel Chion, the French composer, and he has this musicianly understanding of playing. And the musician is basically when you are in this Werktreu, in the faithfulness to the original, and being in the structured in the norms, and the musicianly when you're pushing the boundaries and finding something new. And this is what we need. And also with the fixed mindset and growth mindset, it's of course very important that you have this fixed view. Then you are resistance towards the creative thinking and the growth basically. Thank you all very, very much for your presentations, for being with us today. And we are exactly in 1 hour. So we had a good time for this 5th session today. And we will be back next Monday for the final session, 6th session of the project Freedom in Music Education. Thanks again to Christian Jelichich, Keld Hosbondi, and Kimble Gallagher. See you next Monday for CT. Bye-bye.
Bye.